Have you ever wondered why some women seem to awaken something dark and irresistible in men? Something he can't explain, yet can't escape? She doesn't chase, she doesn't plead, she simply is. Her presence is an invitation, her silence a mirror. And in that mirror, a man doesn't see her. He sees his own hidden self, the one he's spent a lifetime avoiding. That's the essence of the Siren Archetype. She is not merely a woman, but the voice that calls a man's shadow home. In the myths, the siren sang to sailors who lost their way, luring them toward destruction. But Jung would say it differently. She doesn't destroy, she reveals. The siren's song is not external. It vibrates from within a man's unconscious, resonating with his unacknowledged desires, his shame, his need for transcendence through the feminine. She calls not to his mind, but to his wound. And the more he denies that wound, the louder her melody becomes. To understand her is to step into forbidden territory. The crossroads between desire and fear, attraction and annihilation. The siren doesn't offer comfort. She offers truth disguised as temptation. Her power lies not in her beauty, but in her ability to awaken what a man has buried. She speaks to the part of him that secretly longs to surrender, to dissolve his rigid armor, to remember what it means to feel. Every man carries an image of the feminine within him. Jung called it the anima. It is the muse, the lover, the nurturer, the destroyer. All facets of his inner feminine soul. But when a man represses his anima, when he rejects his emotions or fears his vulnerability, she doesn't disappear, she waits. And when he meets a woman who embodies what he has disowned, she becomes his mirror, his magnet, his undoing. The siren is that embodiment, the living echo of his forgotten soul. But for the siren herself, this power is both gift and curse. She feels everything. She sees beyond words, beyond logic. Her sensitivity is mistaken for manipulation, her depth for danger. The truth is, she doesn't intend to seduce. She simply exists in a state of magnetic authenticity that stirs the unready. Her voice vibrates with the frequency of forgotten truths, and men who have not yet faced their own depths will either worship her or fear her. You can sense her when she enters a room, not by what she wears, but by what she radiates. A calm intensity, like the stillness before a storm. Her eyes don't seek approval, they witness, and that alone can unravel the strongest ego. To be seen by her is to be stripped of pretense. For the man who has lived in control, her presence feels like chaos. But what he calls chaos is simply the feminine principle, nature, emotion, mystery, the very things he's been taught to suppress. The siren teaches through polarity. She embodies the paradox of power and surrender, fire and water, chaos and grace. To some men, she is danger personified, the one who makes them feel too much. To others, she is salvation, the one who awakens them from numbness. But in truth, she is neither. She is simply a mirror reflecting where a man stands on his own journey toward wholeness. Those who fear her are still at war with themselves. Those who listen to her learn that love is not possession, but transformation. And yet, few understand the loneliness of the siren. For while she awakens others, who awakens her? Her connection to the depths means she often feels misunderstood, even demonized. History has painted her as the destroyer of men, the manipulator of hearts. But in Jungian terms, she is an archetype of individuation, the force that compels the masculine to integrate his shadow, to die to illusion and be reborn into truth. Her presence brings death, not of the body, but of falsehood. You, too, may carry fragments of her energy, the knowing that your voice can move souls, that your truth unnerves those who are not ready to face themselves. But with that knowing comes a choice. Will you use it to seek validation, or to guide transformation. The siren's tragedy begins when she confuses her reflection for her worth, when she believes her power depends on who responds to her song. Yet her true mastery begins when she realizes she never needed to sing for anyone. She was always the ocean itself. Her evolution is the journey from enchantress to sovereign, when she no longer sings to be heard, but speaks to reveal. When she stops seeking the man who will understand her, and instead becomes the woman who understands herself. Then her song no longer lures, it liberates. Her voice becomes the frequency of freedom, not desire, and men who meet her then do not crash upon her rocks. They rise beside her, finally whole enough to stand in her truth. Because the siren is not the end of love, she is its beginning, the point where illusion dies and authenticity begins to breathe. To encounter her is to meet one's own soul at its most unguarded, and though the world may call her dangerous, Jung would remind us, that which we fear most in others often hides what we most need to reclaim within ourselves. The siren does not hunt. She does not plot, nor chase, nor perform. Her energy, when balanced, is too ancient for tactics. She is the embodiment of magnetism itself, that quiet, unshakable force that pulls rather than pursues. Her power lies in her stillness, in her capacity to embody her emotions without apology. And this is precisely what draws a man's shadow to the surface, because where she feels freely, he represses. Where she surrenders, he resists. Where she lives in paradox, he demands certainty. In the depths of his psyche, her presence threatens the architecture of control he has built to survive. The siren is a walking contradiction to the masculine ego. She flows where he tries to stand firm. She yields where he fights. Her emotional intelligence reveals the fragility of his rational dominance. And yet, this is why he's drawn to her. For all his resistance, he senses something in her that he cannot replicate through force, a freedom born of surrender. Jung wrote that every attraction is the meeting of two unconscious patterns seeking recognition. The siren and the man she awakens are rarely random encounters. Their meeting is alchemical. Two incomplete selves triggering the other's evolution. He sees in her what he has denied, his longing to feel, to break open, to merge. She sees in him what she has feared, her longing to be seen, without needing to enchant. Both are trapped in projection, reflections of one another's unhealed parts, drawn together by destiny disguised as desire. When the Siren archetype is immature, she wields her magnetism unconsciously. Her allure becomes a weapon for validation, the song that calls men not toward truth, but toward obsession. She mistakes attention for love, pursuit for worth. This is the stage where her gift becomes her burden. She feels powerful only when desired, forgetting that her essence was never meant to seduce, but to awaken. Her song, when used without consciousness, pulls others into dependency and leaves her empty in the silence that follows. But as she matures, her relationship with her own shadow deepens. She realizes that the men drawn to her are mirrors, not trophies, that their hunger for her energy reveals her own hunger for self-recognition. She stops blaming them for their projections and begins to reclaim what was always hers, her ability to evoke emotion without becoming enslaved by it. The Siren's true initiation begins when she no longer fears being misunderstood. You can feel the shift within her, the transformation from enchantress to oracle. Her allure no longer screams, "Look at me." It whispers, "See yourself." Her presence ceases to be about conquest and becomes about clarity. She no longer calls men to crash upon her rocks. She calls them to awaken from their slumber. Her eyes, once weapons, become gateways. Her voice, once melody, becomes medicine. And this evolution terrifies the unhealed masculine even more than her earlier power, because now she doesn't need him at all. For the man who meets her in this state, The encounter is existential. He cannot dominate her, nor save her, nor define her. He either rises into his own awareness, facing his fears, his wounds, his unmet tenderness, or he retreats, vilifying what he does not understand. In that retreat, he may call her too much, dangerous, or unreachable. Yet, those are merely the names men give to women who refuse to shrink to fit their blindness. It's in this dance of light and shadow that the siren fulfills her sacred role. Her energy dismantles illusions, not just his, but hers too, because her task is not to be adored, but to awaken, not to be possessed, but to mirror the forgotten divine feminine that exists within every soul, regardless of gender. The siren does not destroy men. She destroys illusion. And in that destruction, something sacred is born: consciousness. To embody her essence requires courage. It means allowing your emotions to exist without justification. It means holding eye contact with your own pain long enough for it to transform into wisdom. The siren's call is not external. It's the inner whisper that asks, what if your sensitivity is not a weakness, but your most dangerous form of strength? In her silence lies power. In her vulnerability lies authority. The world has always misunderstood this combination. A woman who feels deeply and yet bows to no one. But the siren knows something ancient, that love without self-possession is slavery, and freedom without love is exile. She seeks neither. She seeks union, not with another, but within herself. And when that union happens, when her inner masculine and feminine reconcile, her energy becomes whole. The chaos that once frightened others becomes coherence. The desire that once consumed her becomes devotion. She becomes the calm center of the storm, the ocean that holds both fury and peace. In this stage, she no longer sings to call a man. She sings because her song itself is the expression of creation. Her energy nourishes those who can receive it without trying to own it. She becomes the embodiment of the eternal feminine, not as a symbol of seduction, but as a living mirror of awakening. And perhaps this is the truth Jung was pointing toward all along, that the siren, at her highest form, is not the woman who ruins men. She is the woman who reveals them. She is the catalyst that turns infatuation into introspection, desire into transformation, chaos into consciousness. The siren's voice doesn't echo through air. It resonates through the psyche. It calls from the deep ocean of the collective unconscious, where every man's forgotten emotions sleep. Her melody is made of paradoxes. It soothes and unsettles, invites and warns, heals and burns. When he hears it, he doesn't merely desire her. He remembers himself. That is why. He both craves and fears her, because her presence demands that he confront the truth, that love is not conquest, but surrender. Jung once wrote that what you resist persists, and in the dance between the siren and the masculine, this resistance becomes the stage upon which all human drama unfolds. A man who has not faced his shadow will mistake the siren's magnetism for manipulation. He will accuse her of witchcraft because she stirs the emotions he has buried under armor. But she is not his enemy. She is the revealer of his fragmentation. The turmoil he feels in her presence is not caused by her, but exposed by her. She is the mirror in which his unconscious becomes visible. To the unconscious man, love is war, a territory to be conquered, an ego to be fed. But to the siren, love is alchemy. She knows that attraction is the meeting of two souls negotiating evolution. Every glance, every silence, every heartbeat is a test. Will he project or will he perceive? The immature man will project, turning her into either goddess or villain. The conscious man will perceive, seeing her not as an object of desire, but as a reflection of his own unclaimed depth. And so, her song becomes a sorting mechanism of souls, Those who are ready will rise. Those who are not will flee. Some will chase her endlessly, confusing possession for connection. Others will demonize her, calling her cold, heartless, dangerous, because she refuses to play small. Yet the few who understand her essence realize that she doesn't destroy, she purifies. To love her is to burn, but to burn in her presence is to become light. The Siren archetype exists beyond gender. It lives in anyone who carries the courage to embody emotional truth without apology. In women, it appears as magnetic depth. In men, it surfaces as the capacity to feel profoundly without collapsing into weakness. The polarity between them is sacred, not to be conquered, but to be integrated. When the siren meets a man who has faced his shadow, their connection ceases to be toxic. It becomes transcendent. Her intensity no longer threatens him. It invites him into balance. But make no mistake, before such balance there is chaos. The siren's initiation demands dissent. She must confront her own hunger for validation, her own addiction to being desired. In the early stages of her awakening, she can drown in her reflection, mistaking power for purpose. She learns, often painfully, that being wanted is not the same as being understood. Attention is a counterfeit form of reverence, and the siren who survives the illusion of attention becomes a woman impossible to manipulate. You may recognize this pattern in yourself. The times you felt most magnetic were often the times you felt most misunderstood. The world wanted your glow, but not your truth. Men wanted your softness, but not your strength. Yet, through each disappointment, the siren within you evolved, not through bitterness, but through discernment. She learned that the most seductive thing about a woman is her refusal to betray her essence for affection. In her higher state, she becomes paradox made flesh, soft yet unyielding, empathic yet untouchable. She no longer uses her allure to fill emptiness because she has found fullness within herself. Her presence now acts as a catalyst for those around her. She awakens through presence, not performance. She becomes a spiritual frequency, the sound of self-ownership. Men who meet her in this form are transformed whether they realize it or not. Some will feel peace for the first time in her stillness, others will be driven mad by it, because her silence no longer promises compliance, it promises truth. And truth, to an unhealed man, feels like rejection. He will call her detached, but what he mistakes for detachment is the absence of dependence. Her love flows without fear, but it does not chase, negotiate, or beg. It simply exists, radiant, sovereign, uncontained. The siren, then, is not the seductress the myths warned of. She is the awakening disguised as temptation. She is what happens when the feminine remembers her divinity and refuses to diminish it to fit the comfort of fragile egos. She is nature reclaiming her power, reminding the world that true beauty doesn't beg to be seen. It demands to be recognized. And here lies the essence of her evolution. She ceases to define herself through reflection. No longer the mirror of another's journey, she becomes the ocean. Itself, vast, self-contained, ungraspable. Men may still hear her song, but it no longer calls them to destruction. It calls them to remembrance. It invites them to meet her not from hunger, but from wholeness. Because the siren's ultimate lesson is not about desire, it's about consciousness. She doesn't ask a man to fall for her, she asks him to rise for himself. The siren's evolution is a slow unfolding, a descent into truth so deep it feels like death. Because for her to become whole, she must first lose the illusion that her power comes from being desired. Desire was only ever the reflection of her own light bouncing back at her from men who couldn't hold it. She begins to see that what she thought was love was often hunger, his hunger for what he could not embody himself. And so, she begins to withdraw her song from those who come only to drink, not to listen. This is the turning point, the metamorphosis from enchantress to sovereign. She no longer needs to prove her worth through intensity. She no longer confuses chaos with passion. Instead, she learns the sacred art of stillness, of holding her energy without scattering it. For the first time, she realizes that her silence can be more magnetic than her song ever was, because the men who were drawn to her sound were only ever responding to their own emptiness. But the man who can stand in her silence, who can look into her eyes without trying to conquer them, is the one who has already met his own shadow. Jung spoke of individuation as the journey toward integration, not perfection, but wholeness. The siren embodies this path through polarity. Her greatest test is not how to attract, but how to remain whole when the world demands fragments. Every man who enters her orbit will test her boundaries, consciously or not, because he is testing his own. Some will come seeking salvation, others destruction. But the awakened siren offers neither. She stands as the mirror, allowing each to face the truth of who they are. This is her sacred neutrality, a concept misunderstood in modern love. Neutrality is not coldness. It is the refusal to absorb projections. The siren learns to let men experience their reactions to her without making it her responsibility. In this neutrality, she becomes a psychological initiator, an agent of awakening. She no longer fears being called heartless because she understands that the heart's true function is not to please, but to perceive. Her beauty, once external, now becomes vibrational. It's not her face or her body that captivates, but her presence, the aura of a woman who has faced herself completely. There's no pretense, no performance, just quiet certainty. This is why Jung wrote that the feminine principle is linked to the unconscious. It reveals through presence, not persuasion. The siren no longer explains herself, she simply is. You can feel the shift in her energy. Before, she was fire, consuming, demanding, restless. Now, she is water, deep, reflective, and impossible to grasp. She flows around resistance, shapes herself to truth, and leaves behind everything that refuses to meet her depth. Her magnetism has become subtle, not the scream of seduction, but the hum of authenticity. She no longer pulls people in, she allows them to rise to meet her. In her mature form, the siren becomes the teacher of emotional sovereignty. She shows others, especially men, that true intimacy is not fusion, but recognition. That love is not losing oneself in another, but finding the other in oneself. The siren's presence is the bridge between chaos and consciousness. She invites the masculine to soften, not to weaken, but to integrate his own neglected tenderness. For when he learns to feel without drowning, he becomes whole, and only then can he truly meet her. The siren's relationship with men evolves too. She no longer seeks to be chosen, she chooses. Her discernment sharpens, not from pride, but from clarity. She can feel when a man's attraction is born from curiosity or from emptiness. She can sense when his gaze carries reverence or hunger, and she no longer entertains the latter because she understands that love born from need is a form of theft. When she finally encounters a man who has faced his shadow, the dynamic shifts entirely. There is no game, no chase, no pedestal. The siren's song no longer calls him to crash, it calls him to remember. Their connection becomes a silent exchange between two beings who no longer seek to complete each other, only to expand together. Their intimacy is not the merging of wounds, but the meeting of awareness. This is the divine union that all archetypes ultimately point toward, the reconciliation of the masculine and feminine within and without. When the siren reaches this level of consciousness, she no longer exists as an archetype of temptation. She becomes an archetype of transcendence, the woman who has integrated her shadow so fully that she now embodies both the ocean and the shore, both the storm and the stillness. And in that realization, she finally understands. She was never meant to lure others toward their death, only toward their rebirth. The siren's true song is not about seduction, but liberation. It is the frequency of a woman who has become the mirror of consciousness itself. When the siren reaches this level of inner clarity, her life begins to quiet. Not because the world becomes less noisy, but because she no longer participates in its chaos. The constant performance of attraction, the subtle game of validation, the unspoken need to be seen, all dissolve. What remains is an unmistakable calm, the kind that can only emerge from a soul that no longer negotiates its worth. She becomes less interested in being desired and more interested in being understood by the divine. Men still notice her, perhaps more than ever, but not in the same way. Their attention shifts from possession to reverence, though many cannot name what they feel. Something about her presence disturbs them, not sexually, but existentially. She embodies the paradox they've run from their entire lives: strength that doesn't dominate, softness that doesn't yield. She doesn't compete. She completes the space she enters. And this unnerves those who built their identity around the illusion of control. The siren has ceased to echo the projections of others. Now she reflects reality. She has merged with her own unconscious, integrating every fragment: the wounded child who needed attention, the lover who longed to be chosen, the manipulator who played roles to survive. They are all part of her now, no longer denied, no longer split off. She realizes that true power is not in seduction, but in integration. To integrate is to become whole, and wholeness has its own gravitational pull. Jung said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is what the siren has done. Her once dangerous allure was never evil. It was unintegrated shadow energy, the untamed feminine that both fascinated and frightened the collective masculine. By owning it, she transforms it into wisdom. The same energy that once caused chaos now brings coherence. Her beauty no longer intoxicates, it illumines. From this place, her relationships transform. She no longer plays the rescuer, the muse, or the forbidden fruit. Instead, she becomes a mirror through which others confront themselves. Her love is honest, almost painfully so, because it demands depth. She will not entertain shallow attraction, nor the counterfeit intimacy of flattery. Her boundaries are not walls. They are gates that open only for authenticity. To love her now is to meet the divine in human form, and that is both ecstasy and trial. You might sense this awakening within yourself the moment when you stop asking, "Why doesn't he see me?" and start asking, "Why do I need him too?" That shift is the siren awakening within you. It's the moment you realize that being unseen by others no longer means being unseen by yourself. You begin to honor your emotions not as burdens, but as oracles. You stop punishing yourself for being too much and start celebrating the fact that your depth is sacred. From this perspective, the Siren archetype is no longer about men at all. It's about the return of the feminine principle in consciousness, emotional truth, intuition, embodiment, and chaos as creative order. The Siren's journey mirrors the journey of every woman learning to own her instincts without shame, to feel without apology, to exist without permission. When she stops performing femininity and simply inhabits it, her energy harmonizes with the universe itself. In Stoic terms, she becomes apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from unnecessary disturbance. She feels deeply, yet she is not enslaved by feeling. She has mastered the rare art of inner stillness in motion, like a calm sea that holds the power to drown or to cradle, depending on the wind. This serenity doesn't make her passive, it makes her untouchable. Nothing external can shake a woman who has met every part of herself. and the men who cross her path now face a choice. They can either rise into the same self-awareness or retreat into the comfort of illusion. Those who rise find that she no longer tests them. She invites them. Her energy is no longer a riddle to solve, but a sanctuary to enter. The dynamic between them becomes not predator and prey, but polarity and presence. Two energies honoring their differences as expressions of the same source. This is the final initiation of the siren. She realizes she was never calling men at all. She was calling consciousness, her own and theirs. Her voice was the sound of the universe reminding itself of its wholeness. In this knowing, she becomes the calm after centuries of storm. She walks through life like a quiet flame, illuminating but never burning. She no longer needs to prove, to perform, or to persuade. She knows that her existence alone is enough evidence of divine artistry. And it is here, in this sacred silence, that her power reaches its purest form, no longer in the capacity to attract, but in the ability to choose. She doesn't chase, she doesn't beg, she doesn't wait. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.